just developing a basic break and throw drill.
Right. Yeah, we actually, it's funny, we get made fun of a lot, especially when we travel to other locations. People see us out there, and we spend a lot of time on catch play. And for new families that come into the organization, they kind of laugh because we tell them the number one thing we notice, I don't care how old you are, kids don't know how to play catch. But they don't know what that means. They don't know what playing catch means, like how you work through the ball, how you break, how you separate at the midline, get your arm in slide, and go. They don't understand that. We teach them how to play catch, and how to communicate on top of that. We were down in Hoover, Alabama, warming up for a game, and we teach our kids communication. When you're out there playing catch, you're going to yell, hit me, hit me, hit me, and make sure that the guy throwing the ball to you knows exactly where he's throwing it. And we heard the other team start chirping, hit me, hit me, hit me, making fun of us. And then when they hit the ball into the gap and we double cut and gun them out at third or home, yelling, hit me, hit me, hit me, hit me, we're kind of like, that's where that comes into play.
Who's laughing now, right?
That's right.
After he's gunned out at second base and beating his helmet in his head, heading back to the dugout.
That's right. So, yeah, we get made fun of because we play a lot of catch. We do a lot of base running. We focus a lot on it. I'm telling you, the first 45 minutes of a 2-hour practice, playing catch and base running.
There you go. You were going to say something?
Yeah, that's. I mean, I love. That's music to my ears. The word development, because me as a tournament director, we see everything come through the ranks throughout the years, and that has been somewhat of a lost art, if you will. Everybody's too busy about winning. Well, in order to win, you have to develop these young men, because at the end of the day, when we get up to the higher ranks, where the rubber meets the road, they're going to know if you're a dude or not. But until you get to that age, you have to develop these young men. And it's not just throwing the bag of balls out there and making out the lineup saying, go at it, boys. Like you said, teach them how to play catch. We can tell, when I was coaching, when I was playing college ball, you can tell if you're in for a rough 9 innings or 7 innings, whichever you're going through, just by the way your opponent warmed up.
Right.
Yeah. And that's true. And I think that's still at the youth level too.
100%.
If you walk out there and you can watch and see how you're warming up, how people are doing, what are they, okay, can we can take extra bases. We can do these things. When you guys are talking about development though, all right, you bring a group in and they start at the 9U level and whatnot. What's the process that moves them through that?
Honestly, it starts with those basics. Playing catch and running the bases. Learn how to run the bases. Learn how to take a lead off. Learn how to read the pitcher. Running the bases actually teaches you how to read what the pitcher's doing. Yeah. So then when you get in the batter's box, you're actually trained a little bit better, viewing the pitcher, seeing the pitcher, looking at tendencies. Are they giving anything away? How do you study the game? Even at the youth level, watch the game and study the game.
When you're talking about coaches, I think that's a big process in my estimation. Because for one, I know everybody goes, oh man, I don't want a dad coach. Well, you know what? 9 to 12, 14, if you got dad coaches, there ain't nothing wrong with that. I think but what are the clubs doing, and what are you guys in particular? And I think this is the question. How are we helping some of these dads who may not have some of the experience that some other dads may have? Maybe they played a little college ball, maybe they didn't, whatnot. How are you helping those guys cope with that and build those development processes?
Yeah, so I can speak to us. I can't really speak to what other clubs are doing. We've seen it, and I actually, to be fair, from 2 years ago, I have to give a shout out to a lot of other clubs in town. They're getting better. We're seeing better baseball. We're seeing better coaching. So just as a fan of baseball, I love it. I love some of what we're seeing. But for what we do, starts at winter training, right? So our trainers, our staff, our paid coaches, they run our winter training. All of our coaches are required to be there, but we write the practice plan for every single winter training session. It's 7 days a week for all the various ages. We write the practice plan, and then we follow that to a T down to the minute. And the coaches are required to be there to understand the program we're running and what we're trying to develop in these kids. And then we put all of our coaches through multiple coaching clinics throughout the winter where we tell them, this is what your warm-up is going to look like. Yeah. So when you step onto the field before a game, this is exactly what you're going to do. And it's not a question. Like, you don't get to deviate from that.
These are very structured.
Yes. And because it gets the boys into a routine, into a habit. It becomes muscle memory on how they're going to approach warm-ups and then how they're going to play the game. And so that's how we're helping even our dad coaches, making sure that they're following the process. We give them a platform to learn and understand and then build from.
A couple things as we've been doing this winter workout tour for how many years now?
This is our third or fourth year.
Yeah, and a couple key elements that I see with all your more well-organized type clubs, a couple of them, number one, the facility. And when you walk in here, my gosh, Mike, what a state-of-the-art facility you have here. And then you touched on it too, staffing. You have to assemble a good staff in order to carry out your plan. And number three, you have to have it structured. And when you have all those three elements in place, you're going to have a recipe for success, because you don't want the kids showing up. You're probably on a 2-hour time frame.
We are.
You don't want them coming in here, horsing around and like it's recess or something. You want a structured plan, and all the ones that we've been to, Brian, thus far that you see, they have all those elements. And kudos to you, man. This is an outstanding facility.
Thanks. It's funny you mentioned recess. My kids, if you talk to them, they'll tell you all throughout the years where I've been coaching them, that's the one thing I say. I'm like, hey, this isn't recess.
Hey.
This is not recess. You're not out here to play around with your buddies for 2 hours. Like, it's time to go to work. We're going to have fun, but let's go to work.
For the 2 hours, parents drop the kids off their mind, not recess, you can have that at the 2 hours and 5 minute mark.
That's why we created a bar area. Like, tell all the parents, come upstairs, grab a drink, hang out, whatever, get your bottle of water, and then you can look down on your kids, but let us do the training.
Sure.
You can even work on your golf game over there if
we
you
have a
want to.
simulator
Just
now
bring your
over there.
clubs while your kids working out, work on your golf game, right?
You got it. As soon as we're done here, I'll go get my clubs or go play.
And I'm sure Drew, you'll take the camera around and show them what we're talking about here shortly as we go on with the camera mobile stuff. But yeah, what a great facility.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
The last part of this, and this is, I think, the hardest one, and I'm sure Dave, everybody knows this. This isn't the hard question, and I say these things, not trying to put anybody in particular, but I believe that these are the things that you have to talk about. There are parents that are just great about things, understand where you're going, what you're doing, and then, there's always, it's coaches, especially high school coaches, we don't want to talk to parents. Nobody wants to talk to parents. Well, you're a dad. You want to talk to the coach about your son. Same thing. I did. Everybody does. And I think as coaches, we have to understand that those parents are invested in their child.
Right.
But as parents, how are we as coaches, how are we developing a thought process that sets correct expectations? And I think that's the key. That's the one mechanism. I don't know if we've just quite figured out yet, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's a fine line, right? So parents are paying a lot of money to be part of a club.
Sure.
So they want two things, I think. They want to see that their kid's being taken care of and developed, and they want to make sure their kid's playing.
Right.
The problem is you hear parents say all the time, well, I want to play elite competition. Great. What does that mean?
Right.
Do you even know what elite competition really is? A lot of people maybe do, I don't know. But,
right.
So it's a fine line of balancing parent expectations versus reality a little bit.
I would say this, though. Is your son an elite baseball player?
You have to ask those questions.
And I think that's a fair question. And as a parent, I have to be honest. And you have to understand, and I know there are parents that don't, but I think that's the toughest connection right there, correct?
Yeah, and I think, again, I mean, we're still learning and growing, and we have a lot of places that we can get better. We have a parent meeting every year before the fall season starts, and it is mandatory. Every parent in the organization has to be here. Myself, Craig Ringy, our folks, we get up and talk this year. We had a gentleman out of Chicago, he's a neuroscience physician, actually come in and talk about how the mind works and the difficulty you have playing this game and how difficult this game is, right? So we try to bring a lot of value to those parent meetings, something different outside of the box, but at the same time, make sure parents understand these are our expectations.
Yeah.
And you're going to follow them. Okay, we even joke with parents, like, a lot of people like to drink beer and have fun with drinking beer and stuff like that. The expectation is if if we can develop these kids the right way, they're probably going to be playing baseball for a long time on Sunday. If you crack open your first beer at noon and you're still drinking, playing ball at 8 a.m., it might be a difficult Sunday evening, right? And so, but we set expectations even along those lines that
Got that right.
you got to keep it under control a little bit. Again, Brian, I think it comes down to just communication at the end of the day and making sure that parents know this is where we see your child at this stage of the game and where we think that they can thrive the most, and then make sure you come in and you see what we're doing with training and development, especially on the individual level, the winter training stuff, because that's where the value is.
Right.
And
right.
I think, my personal opinion, I think if parents would worry less and less about, well, how are you making, my son's team better, ask the question, is my son getting better?
Right.
What are you doing, or what can I do to make my son better, to help get them better, instead of worrying about what the team's doing all the time?
Well said. Well said. And a lot of that too, and I'm sure you see it here, is they have to realize and acknowledge the 2 hours that they spend here a day, a week, or whichever you have them train with. I'm sure it ramps up as the season gets closer. But that don't stop. When they're home, they need to be working at home as well.
Right. Yeah. And it's setting that expectation that even I'll give last night, right? My 10-year-old, I coaches his 10U clutch team, and I told him, I said, you want to play a lot, you want to be better. Blakey, how many times have you gone downstairs with a tennis ball, got down and just worked on your fielding progressions, how you work your glove through the baseball? Not a lot.
Like a 10-year-old, right?
Right? But again, that's just a conversation I have with my own 10-year-old. Every parent should be having those conversations about, are you carrying over what we do here to home to keep getting better? You're 100% right.
I think that's the important part. I like what you did, what you talked about there, having that meeting with the parents. These are the expectations, because parents have to understand that there are levels. Do you understand where your son's at right now, and will you accept that? And I don't know if there's a lot of parents who are willing to accept the level that their son is at the moment.
Right.
And just understand that and allow that child to get better, rather than pushing to some unreasonable thought process. And I've seen it, and I don't think that's the larger percentage of the parents. I think that's the smaller percentage of the parents, personally, because I think most people have a pretty good handle on it. They want their kids to succeed, and voila.
Right.
Agreed?
Yeah, and again, it goes back to communication. What we tell our coaches. You're going to sit down and you're going to have a visit with all of the parents on your team. And you're going to explain, this is where your son is excelling and this is where they need to work a little bit more. All of our kids that go through our strength program, they get monthly report cards. The parents get to see, where were they last month, the month before that? Are they making progress? If we're not seeing the progress that they need to make, our trainers sit down in our conference room and have a one-on-one conversation with those parents and say, here's where we're struggling, we need to get better. So I think it's communication at the end of the day and making sure we're all on the same page with where we are.
I love that. I think that's great. We want to get Zach and Jeff up here. I don't know if they've run off or there's Jeff down there.
They're here.
I want to get them up here in this next conversation. Yeah.
Oh yeah,
there they are.
And Coach Spearman, he loves talking. So fair warning to everybody, he loves talking.
That's all right. That's what we want. We're gonna mic them up here, and we're gonna kick Mike out of here. And,
yeah, you and Coach Dunk.
Bring these guys in and whatnot. But Mike, it's always a pleasure, man.
Bri, I love it. Thank you so much for having me back. Dave, great to see you.
Congratulations on the facility, man. Awesome.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
It's a big playground.
So we're going to get these guys in here and mic'd up. We're going to grab these mics. We're going to trade you spots here with these two guys. And we're going to talk a little more baseball here.
Here we go, guys. Thanks.
No, thanks. Hey, and while we're sitting here waiting on these guys to get in here, Zach, whichever chair you want, we'll put Jeff over there next to Dave and get him. We got to get this mic on you right here. Just put it on the outside there.
Did he take his?
Yeah, he's got it. Jeff's got it. Jeff's got it. We're getting everybody mic'd up here. This is live. This is where it works, baby.
Can you hear him?
Can you hear me?
Can we hear him all right?
Do I need to move it?
My engineer over there, well, we're going to talk anyway.
It's on. It's hot.
It's coming in hot. And, Jeff, what's your last name, buddy? I'm sorry. Jeff Duncan. He's the weight training specialist. Is that the best way to put it?
That's perfect.
Yeah, you
Is
put
that
the
right?
weight training guy next to me. I love it.
Well, Dave, that's because, I mean.
We're gonna get a workout in after we're done.
This is the kind of workout I'll be doing after.
I gotta give a shout out to Brian Kessler over there who helped put all this together and sent me the hat way back. Honestly, when he started working, he's like, I hadn't seen him in years, and hadn't thought and whatnot, and he sent me the hat in the mail and said, "Hey, man, good to hear that you're still doing this." And so it was great to see it. Appreciate Mr. Kessler over there running this. And Zach, you got to tell the folks your name.
Zach Pearman.
Zach Pearman. He's the pitching director here. And throwing strikes, bro?
Yeah, throw strikes and compete.
There you go. I love it.
At the end
I
of the
love
day,
it.
that's the number one thing. That's the one thing you can't do without, no matter where you're at. Level, you don't hide from level at that point in time.
Well, we want to talk a little bit. I think the future of club baseball is in these types of situations, right? And I think the foundational part of it is in the weight training, how these kids are getting bigger, stronger, faster. How do they throw harder? How do they, hit the ball harder? And it all starts right there, doesn't it?
I think so. I mean, I think even at a young age, I think it's good to see how kids move and make sure they're still mobile and everything. And I think we're just an extension of what these other guys are doing here at Legacy and helping all the kids reach their goals through the strength and fitness part of it.
When you're talking about, let's start with the youth ages, right? 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, there's not a lot of testosterone there. We all know that, right? That's just the way it is. How do you set those things in motion for those younger age groups, and what are the things you guys do that way?
I think we're able to look at just kind of our philosophy and how we work out when we look at just a fundamental workout for a high school age kid, and then are able to kind of take those movements and regress them for elementary, middle school kids too. So they're doing more mobility, more body weight type stuff, and again, just learning the correct form and movement patterns at that age before we add any type of external load.
100%.
I think it's interesting. One of the things I think it's most difficult to teach anybody, and I don't care if it's an adult or whatnot, how does your body feel?
Right.
Can you feel the movement? Can you, if you're trying to replicate a pitch, and I think this is where this foundational piece comes in. How do you teach a 9-year-old what it feels like to replicate motion? And does that fit into that thought process?
I think so. I think you said it perfectly. When you can get kids into different body positions or different movements, and they're able to control those movements without any weights at an early age, then they're able to repeat those movements in a safe pattern as they get older, which allows them to get stronger, which allows them to throw harder, run faster, and do all the things they're going to need to be able to do for baseball.
I think that's the biggest thing. Now, Dave, he's got the statue out.
Well, I was about to say, I'm old, okay? So, growing up back when I played youth baseball, this was a huge component that club baseball and baseball, youth baseball in the 2000s has to offer, as elements like strength and conditioning. I didn't have anything like that, and it's a huge piece of the puzzle because muscle memory and everything comes into place. Plus, you're not only developing and with muscle memory, you're also probably avoiding and prolonging a kid's like arms and stuff, whatnot, conditioning them to go farther and not get as hurt as often or as easy as like an old guy like I was playing.
I think that's the biggest piece in it is just, the best ability is availability, and teaching kids to be safe and preparing them and helping them not get injured is a big component of, I think, why you start that as an early age. And I think even developing just a good habit as far as being able to work out, being disciplined, as Zach said, being able to compete each day in everything that you do, you can start that at an early age and keep it safe, keep it fun, keep it fun for those kids where they want to continue to come back.
Sure, and then when they get to the older ages, you can start implementing more drills, more vigorous drills and whatnot, and strength and conditioning. But like the younger ages, you develop them there, right there, introduce them to it, get the muscle memory down, and like you said, keep it fun
Yeah,
for them too. That way it's
exactly.
like second nature to them, so they're like, hey, you know
It's
what,
just
I'm
part of
having
your
fun.
day, something you
Exactly.
do, something you need to be able to compete.
If you've got a 9-year-old and you're teaching him these body movements, how much easier is it for you as a pitching coach when you got that kid at 15 who's been rolling through this process, right?
It's enormous. It's like the number one thing, it doesn't really matter, where you're at in the stage, right? Like the quality of movement trumps almost everything. When you see guys and they look how they're supposed to look and the ball comes out of their hand the way it's supposed to come out of their hand or the way they want it to, obviously. It depends on, you have to manage expectations in that setting, what's actually going to be realistic for each individual kid because they are individual in the moment, but it comes back to like quality of movement. So like there has to be a base and then you build upon the base. But if you don't start that base and put the time in to put yourself in a good spot to build, whether it's like 9 to 11, I mean, we know how the developmental age gaps are enormous year to year to year, and I don't know if it ever really stops until they're about 20. So you're always building on something.
Right.
The guys that come in here and they put the work in at 9, 10, 11, and they give themselves a chance to then have a high performance delivery at 15, because you can't have and you won't have a high performance delivery without a high performant quality of movement. You have to put yourself in those spots to be able to get in a spot and then go fast, and that's what's going to require to do what you need to do at that point in time. But
I like what you said there,
Building
go
blocks.
fast.
Yeah.
Because when you look at, we look at a lot of the kids, I follow the high school kids and this and whatnot, and you see hand speed registered, you see arm speed registered. That makes a difference. And coming back to this, the youth ages, and I want parents to this is to me is the important things. When you're at those age levels, you have an 11 and 12-year-old who is on the smaller side. They're not. I've seen 12-year-old kids with hair on their legs, and it's true. It happens at times. But there's the difference in those things, and how do you manage those expectations? Because that 11-year-old, that 12-year-old who's kind of bad, he wants to pump 80, but he's throwing 60. But yet, how do you manage those situations, right?
I mean, it's tough. I mean, I think kids, they mature at such different
Yeah.
paces,
Right.
and sometimes the best, 8-year-old, 9-year-old doesn't translate into the best 16 and 17-year-old. And so, I think it comes back to being able to do things right, create good habits, be able to put your body in a position where it's moving correctly, so that you give yourself the opportunity to be the best player that you can when you're 16, 17, 18 years old.
And this is why I love these conversations, because Jeff, you're doing it at the high school level as well, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm at Parkway West High School. I've been doing this for 26 years, not only for just baseball kids here, but football, female athletes. Our motto is always just to help kids become better athletes. And if we can help kids become better athletes, then they can train to be better pitchers, better hitters, better basketball players, whatever. They move better.
Movement, and that's what I've heard for probably the last 5-6 years especially, is just that movement process. How do you move? How do you feel your body? And I think as a pitcher especially, I don't care, probably a hitter the same way. But, Dave, you pitched when you were younger. I mean, just having the flexibility, and those the things were different back then though too, right?
Oh, extremely different. Yeah, I mean, I do have a question for you. You alluded to the fact that you train for different sports, football, track. I would assume for each sport there's different regiments, there's different training methods.
Yes and no.
How do you come up with that? Can you elaborate on that?
Well, I think a lot of it depends on who you talk to. I think the training over the last 10 years has shifted more so from like Olympic style lifting, probably like we all did when we were kids. How much weight can you push, to again, being able to move things faster, being able to do single joint or single leg movements, single arm movements, things like that. I would say that for the majority of all sports, most of your workouts, most of your programs probably should be about 80% the same, whether you're a football player, a basketball player, baseball player, things like that. And then as you start to venture on and specialize into your own sports, then you can kind of tailor a little bit of that to their specific needs and what they want. But I'd say foundationally, 80% of what you do needs to be about the same for all athletes across the board.
Nice.
Zach, when we're talking, and I'd assume you work with pitchers from all ages,
I
right?
think we're 8 to 17, sprinkling some college guys, a few pro guys in there.
How are you taking the knowledge you have, because you've coached at the collegiate level, and bring that into perspective for how are you bringing that information, developing that language for an 8, 9, 10-year-old?
So in like the way I try to think about it is you coach the progression. So obviously at the college level and the professional level, whatever, you have a very, very, high performer. So you're coaching the progression. At some point it had to look at its most basic base model. There are non-negotiables.
Right.
Like, can you get yourself in the right spots? Like, do you have bounce? Do you have good posture? Like, do you have the necessary, the things at your disposal to do what you're supposed to do, whether you're 8 or whether you're 18. So I think the easiest thing to do in that setting is just it's easy to get excited, because like you might have a 14-year-old that starts throwing some big numbers and like everyone wants to get excited, but at the same time you might have to pump the brakes on him to make sure that like he follows this progression so that like we keep moving forward. So many times you hear about the 85-mile-an-hour 14-year-old kid that when you find him at 17 and 18, it's 88. So it's like, how did we go from this huge jump at 14, 15 to like what got stagnant? And that's where it comes back to, how important, Jeff in the weight room becomes, because quality of movement's huge. You see so many times now guys go and then you see a 200-pound 14-year-old and it becomes like quality of movement versus max strength.
Right.
And like a lot of times where we start to get in trouble is like we think more is more, and a lot of times less is more. Like, how come you can go find thin-wristed guys with big velo? It's because they organize their body and go fast. I mean, the best example I can remember, and dates me a little bit, Jake Odorizzi, Highland, Illinois guy, shortstop, 155 pounds, 95 miles an hour, and he played multiple positions, he played multiple sports, but it was like he could organize his body, and he never cheated the progression. So it got better year after year after year. And I think that coaching the progression and what it's supposed to look like year after year, and you have to manage some expectations, and sometimes that requires hurting some feelings. It's why somebody can't do something that they think they should be able to do. And but in the grand scheme of things,
You gotta keep it real, right?
but it's life. Like in no other walk of life do you just get to go do what you want to do because you say you're supposed to be able to do it. So
Right.
you have to be real with them at the most basic level. Like, don't be a dream crusher, but like you have to be able to tell them there's a progression to this, and if you cheat that progression, you will not get what you want out of this. Age doesn't really matter in that sense.
I've said this for a while, and I will continue to say it. And I know there's we see at the major league level, it's 90 plus or goodbye. Okay, fantastic. But I see these kids at 11, 12, 13, you just go out, and the coaches say, throw as hard as you can for as long as you can. Sure. And they're killing kids at the plate. They're hitting the backstop. They're walking the bases. It's a cha-cha around the bases. And to me, that doesn't teach pitching. And I still think we have to come back, and it comes to a point where I think you made mention about this, about a particular college coach who has X amount of players, and then he's kicks them to the curb. Sure. Because there are guys that go to school that are pumping 90, but couldn't throw a strike to save their life. And I think sometimes maybe we've gotten that backwards a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, so you have to coach. That's when it becomes about you have to coach each individual athlete, and then you have to understand the setting that they're going to be in and how they're going to be there. Like if you go play for certain guys, there's a premium on certain things. So stuff doesn't always win. Like sometimes guys are going to ask you to do things that maybe work within that philosophy and maybe don't. So I think you just have to understand with each individual kid, identify what are his strengths and weaknesses, and then how are we going to build on that. Some guys, big-bodied, big-armed guys at a younger age are going to throw harder, so maybe you're just working with, hey, we got to get it over the plate, and we got to go with that. Some smaller guys that might not have the velo until they are, their body catches up. Like, there's a different approach. It can't be one size fits all at the end of the day. You have to figure out what's going to work with each individual guy, and then you have to figure out the hardest thing today is figure out how to communicate, like, your plan and vision for, like, what their development's going to be, because that becomes extremely important because of all of the stuff that's in play. the communication piece is probably the number one thing, and it goes back to managing expectations, everything else, but you have to be able to communicate with them at a high level so then they can understand where you're coming from when you're asking them to do these things.
When you have like a 9-10-year-old that you see mechanically is able to progress through things, how do you set that kid in motion as opposed to one that maybe throws maybe is hard, but mechanically isn't quite structured well enough?
Yeah, so I think it just depends, right? Because so guys there's like degrees of freedom and things you can get into in that nature, but like when you get to the spot to where you can identify like, okay, this guy's progressing the way he's supposed to progress. We have the strikes, so maybe then you can get into more of, maybe you can get into some med ball work and stuff like that and try to enhance the explosiveness of the movement without putting the arm at risk. And you can get into some stuff like that, where with the other guy that you might be achieving the same velocity with a different body type, you have to understand like the body will make a change. So when it makes the change, is the delivery good enough to sustain, you know, the hand speed and stuff like that when you get there? A lot of times you see younger guys, it's like the bigger, stronger kid throw the hardest. Well, that doesn't necessarily mean the delivery is going to match that. So when that 12-year-old goes to 15, you see those guys plateau the same way you might see some 15-year-old guys go into 18. So then it's understanding how they're moving, why are they achieving that? Is it safe to try to add, or do you need to try to fix something that could become a problem later? But maybe they're getting away, because a lot of times it's like, I'm not around every program and
Sure.
you know, all walks of these areas, but it's like a lot of these, it seems to be even more so at the younger level. It's like we need to win, like you're saying, as hard as you can for as long as you can. But there's probably a deficiency within some of, not all, but some of those guys have deficiencies that aren't going to be addressed because they're able to have success at that age. So in reality, there's a shelf life on that guy, and if we don't start to try to clean some things up, maybe at the expense of a little bit of like now success versus what it could be, then that's where I think you have to, going back to what we were talking about a second ago, sometimes the conversation like, hey, you're going to get away with this for now, but at some point, that's not going to work anymore. So like, you can either try to make this adjustment now or enjoy, being as good as you can be until the clock runs out.
Yeah, that's one thing we see out there, B. We see an abundance of youth baseball. And there's throwers and there's pitchers. And one thing that I would like to see is turn these throwers into pitchers.
Yeah.
I would love, but with the help of this guy right here, you can make them all pitchers, brother.
Group effort.
But you understand
Sign
where I'm
them up
coming
today.
from. There's abundance of, especially in the youth market. There's a bunch of throwers out there, but with the right tutelage, the right training, the right muscle memory, the right coaching, we can turn them throwers into pitchers. And I would love to see that. Sure.
Especially because you're dealing with, and Game 7 and not just Game 7, but all these tournament companies now, the pitching requirements, the limitations, and it's done because coaches would not reel themselves in at times.
Yeah.
I had to do it at high school all the way down. They had to still.
It's got to still be about development, right? I mean,
Yeah, that gets,
not winning at all costs.
unfortunately, by some, not all, but some that they still have the winning at all costs in mind, and man, it just pains me to see that. That's why we do implement pitching, not pitch counts, but pitching limits, pitching innings. It's definitely a step in the right direction.
Right.
If you want to skirt the issue and tiptoe the line and skirt around it, it's been done before, but we put those rules in place just for that mere fact, to kind of help the, how do I say this, some of the college, or not, some of the coaches that are not well abreast and rehearsed of how many pitches the young man is throwing, and all they're caught up into is, hey man, that's 3-2. Well, this is the top team in the area. I got to leave Johnny out there. He's kicking some rear end here.
Right.
Little Johnny goes back to the dugout and he's just grabbing his arm. I'm like, oh, coach, he goes, yeah, he's got one more inning left, but look how many pitches he's throwing.
Yeah, should we put him back out there? And those are the decisions that are tough, that become, I think, difficult. But okay, and this goes back to something Mike alluded to, and something I believe very much. A lot of parents are paying to play, basically, is what they say. I don't believe parents are paying to play. I think parents should be paying for development. The game is just the fun part. If you've put your son in a club, you've put them there to develop them, to give them the training, And you have to trust the people that they have the best interest of your child in heart, right?
Absolutely.
Right.
So they should be vetting you. They should be coming to you and going, hey, what's your plan?
Have a conversation. 100%.
And to me, I would love to see rosters at the 9, 10, 11, 12U grow.
I think you're 100% right.
What, your thought?
I
Yeah?
think you're 100% right. I think that's how you start to, well, not only that, but you keep more kids engaged, you keep more kids interested, but then you also can reduce a little bit, of burnout and some other things, because injuries are part of everything, no matter what we want to do. And I got hurt, had a surgery. Like, I can tell you, there's nothing more grinding than rehab, and like it makes, at that age, I mean, I'm 21 at that age, so like I have a different perspective. But
Right.
if you put, let's just call it a 15-year-old kid through a similar type process, like you grind through a rehab, it can change the way you think about things moving forward. So I think growing rosters, like not by maybe a lot, maybe it's a kid, maybe it's 2 kids, but you
Right.
you can have more of a rotation, you can get more guys in more spots, you give kids more opportunity to maybe have the chance to experiment at a position that maybe they don't, because it's rare. I mean, it really, at most ages, it's rare you know exactly where you're going to be or what it's going to look like. Like, you go find 15-year-old kids every summer, they get recruited at 17 or 18, that at 15, they were on the worst player on somebody's B team. And that's how, so it's just all about the kids that are willing to work through some things, or maybe playing on that team was the best thing for him because he got to play a position
play.
he would not have got to play.
Right.
So, like, it's where you just have to be careful, but I do think, to your point, I do think having an extra guy or 2, you can't go crazy.
I
Probably
agree.
can't have 16 on a 9-year
No,
roster.
no,
but,
no.
I mean,
But if you got 12,
yeah, 11 at
you're
least.
playing 9 at a time. You got 3 kids. You can sit a kid. You don't have to just put your number 1 who just throws. You don't have to put him back out at shortstop, right? Maybe he plays first base. And I think we need to think about these things development-wise as we're putting, because I think that's why, personally, I think that's why we see a little extra Tommy John here and there.
I mean, maybe. I think
Maybe.
Another thing
I don't
not
know.
to forget about when you get to that point is also like the accountability aspect of having enough guys.
Yeah.
Because like there's a huge problem in a lot. I mean, youth sports at all level, but youth baseball, you go like throwing your stuff, slamming your helmet, throwing your bat, cursing on the field. You see it happen all the time.
Yes.
We all know that shouldn't happen. A lot of times you can handcuff your own coaches because what's he going to do? You're going to play with one short. You still have an obligation to everyone else on the field to try to win that game. So, like, there needs to be a chance, like, if you have the extra guy, it's like, hey, dude, go sit for the rest of the game. Like, we're going to put somebody, you can't do that.
I agree,
The
because
obligation of accountability is still there as well.
when they get to high school,
They get yanked.
that's what's going to happen. Because I umpired high school baseball. It was a freshman game. Kid slides in second. He's canned easy. Boom. It was an easy call. I punch him out.
Right?
Well,
In your eyes.
it was. He was out. He pops up off the base and looks at me and says, "Are you effing kidding me?" I was like, "No." Go sit down.
It's not okay.
And it just blew me away. This is a freshman coming in, and that's a few and far between, And the coach understood why. Once he got the explanation, he's like, and that's where he didn't play anymore, and the coach sat him. That's the difference he was thrown out of the game, couldn't play it anyway. But the thing of it is, not to mention, he's thrown out of that game, he's suspended for the next game. You don't get to play, and that's high school. Right. So I think there is some degree of accountability to those things, right?
It's every walk of life. Like,
Yeah.
There's consequences for actions. You can't do whatever you want and just assume that it's going to be okay.
No, I agree. And I think these are the things that are important, that as we're teaching kids and we're putting kids in these positions, how do they understand what that progression is, starting with those foundational pieces. I think that's what's important about baseball.
Absolutely.
When you guys, I got one more thing here. Growth with youth baseball across the board. Where do you see it? Where do you see baseball going, with everything that's happening and whatnot?
Gosh, I mean, Right now, there's a few directions it can go. I mean, that's a loaded question in its own right. There's a lot of areas.
Yeah, baby, that's what we do around here.
Gotcha. Ideally, where we want to believe it's going is it's going to get back to a place where, like we're saying, we're teaching kids, we're being able to build a foundation, and not only of just from a skill standpoint with the expectation that you're supposed to perform, but also when you don't perform, there's a manner in which you have to conduct yourself. But also, like I said, from the accountability standpoint, you just keep growing through those types of things.
I mean, I think exactly right. I mean, I think, to your point, we talked about this earlier, kind of always keeping the kids' goals at mind and like, what do you want out of this?
Yeah.
Is this something you want to, are you doing this because you want to make your high school baseball team? Or are you doing this because you want to play at a higher level? What do you want out of this, in the end?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's important. You got to know, because we're going to be talking to some of these young players over here, and you guys got some good young players
Very good
in this group that are going to be. I'm looking forward to seeing personally at the high school level, because from Francis Howell to Lindbergh, DeSmet. I mean, you gets to, and these are all really good coaches. They're going to play for good programs. And so to me, that makes a huge impact, because honestly, 9 through 14, that's that development. We're seeing a lot of high-level baseball. We just saw Liberty North go back-to-back with some really great talent. The west part of the state. Whew, that's some serious baseball going on over there. I love to see what it's taking the game of baseball at the high school level to. Agreed?
Right, yeah.
And Brian, that's a testament to places like Mike's here.
Yeah.
His staff, his training, his facility, and that's a testament to that. You can see we're catching up to them. The curve used to be where you go down south, you're going to get it. You're going to get a hand to you. Now the Midwest, we're catching them.
Yeah.
Getting there slowly but surely, but we're catching them. And that's a true testament to these two gentlemen right here and a facility like this to produce, train those individuals. 2 words that I heard all day long is communication and development. I love it. And that's what's going on right here under this roof. And
Accountability, I love that.
That is a huge one.
Well, because it's tough, because this is what the Winter Workout Tour kind of is always been about, is because it's cold outside. We don't get to go outside and play baseball.
Actually, not today.
Right? You're breaking fingers. And I know you guys got the field out here, and I know Mike said, in December when it was 60-some degrees, it was really nice.
Out there practicing.
You got to be out there practicing, and that's one of the things that I think that is great about this facility, is you got that, field out there that makes it nice. But it's wintertime now, and so we have to have places like this to continue to compete at that high level, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's no different than colleges and pro teams having indoors. So there's just that time of year when it's not ideal outside. You have to find a way to get it done.
And if you're not developing at this point in time, those other teams, those guys, that's why Florida, Georgia, Texas, California, Arizona, that's why all those kids have always been ahead of. But I'm seeing the names from the Midwest come into a lot more play, and I think it has to do with what you guys are doing.
Absolutely.
I believe that very much. So we got some good stuff. We're gonna be talking to some of these guys over here. Now that's Brandon right there, right?
Brandon up.
Dude, when did you get so tall?
I don't know.
You gotta come over here. Come over
Just
here.
keeps growing.
Come over here. Look at this. I mean, the last time I saw this, you got to turn and face the camera right here. I don't know if he's in the shot, is he? I mean, look at this.
Tall, drinkable.
You weren't this tall the last time I saw you, bro.
I don't even remember when that was.
You don't?
No.
That was like 2019.
It's 4 years ago.
I think it was like, right? 5 something or whatnot. I mean, this is, what are you feeding him?
Strength and conditioning, babe.
That's what it is right there, right? It's from him, right?
Oh yeah.
He's been working hard.
We're going to talk to these guys a little bit here in a few minutes. We're going to do some player spotlights and whatnot, but always a pleasure, man.
Yeah.
Always a pleasure. That's fun. Guys, thanks for coming in. We're gonna drop the bomb here, the curtain. If you get a chance, if you're looking for a place, I mean, there's a lot of places. We're going to be doing this all throughout the winter time. A lot of fun. Appreciate you guys, Zach, Jeff.
Thank you guys for having
Nice
me.
strap.
Yeah, guys, keep up the good work.
Appreciate it, man.
Absolutely, absolutely. We're gonna get these other guys here. We're gonna have some fun chatting. So be looking for these player spotlights. Everybody, thanks for tuning in today, live from Legacy Performance Academy. Great conversation with these guys. Mike, as always, thanks, bud. Appreciate you letting us come in. Always fun. Everybody, have a great day in the Lord. All you pitchers, what advice for pitchers?
Compete and throw strikes.
I like it. There you go. That's the way it is. Hitters, you got some advice for the hitters?
Yard.
Yard. That's what we do around here. We hit dingers, right? I almost forgot that. We hit dingers. Subscribe if you like what we're doing. Hit the subscribe button right there. Next to it is the dinger. Hit that dinger because that gets you all your notifications for upcoming episodes just like this for Youth Baseball Midwest. Thanks for supporting. Hey, remember our folks over at Prime Sports Midwest. Make sure you check them out. Tough deal over there. They're getting themselves squared away over there. They had the water breakage there, but Rick, we're always thinking of you, buddy. Make sure you go check out Prime Sports Midwest. That's what we do. Thanks for tuning in, guys. We'll see you all next time.